Welcome to our presentation. Today we're going to talk about international trade and payment conditions. The topics we are going to talk about today are understanding international trade, imports and exports, free trade versus protectionism, and payment methods. So, understanding international trade. So, if you can walk into a supermarket and find, for instance, Costa Rican bananas, Brazilian coffee, or a bottle of South African wine, you're experiencing the impacts of international trade. International trade allows countries to expand their markets and access goods and services that otherwise may not have been available domestically. As a result of international trade, the market is more competitive. This ultimately results in a more competitive pricing and brings a cheaper product home to the consumer. International trade was key to the rise of the global economy. In the global economy, supply and demand and thus prices both impact and are impacted by global events. For example, political change in Asia could result in an increase in cost of labor. This could increase the manufacturing cost for an American sneaker company that is based in Malaysia, which would then result in an increase in the price charged for a pair of sneakers that an American consumer might purchase at their local mall.
Imports and exports. A product that is sold to the global market is called an export, and a product that is bought from the global market is an import. Imports and exports are accounted for in the current account section in a country's balance of payments. Global trade allows wealthy countries to use their resources, for example, labor, technology, or capital, more efficiently. Different countries are endowed with different assets and natural resources, such as land, labor, capital, and technology, for example. This allows some countries to produce the same good more efficiently, so in other words, more quickly and at lower cost. Therefore, they may sell more cheaply than other countries can. If a country can not efficiently produce an item, it can obtain it by trading with another country. This is known as specialization in international trade. If we use the countries England and Portugal, for example, they have historically both benefited by specializing in trading according to their comparative advantages. So, for example, Portugal has plentiful vineyards and can make their own wine at low cost. While England doesn't have this, but what England does have is that they can make their clothing more cheaply due to manufacturing reasons, and also because they have a lot of sheep in their country. Each country would eventually recognize these facts and stop attempting to make the product that was more costly to generate domestically in favor of engaging in trade. So indeed, over time, England stopped producing wine and Portugal stopped manufacturing clothing. Both countries saw that it was to their advantage to stop their efforts at producing these items at home and instead to trade it with in other countries to acquire them.
Okay, so free trade versus protectionism. As in all theories, there are opposing views. International trade has two contrasting views regarding the level of control placed on trade between countries. So, free trade is the simpler of the two theories. This approach is also sometimes referred to as laissez-faire economics. With a laissez-faire approach, there are no restrictions on trade. The main idea is that supply and demand factors operating on a global scale will ensure that production happens efficiently. Therefore, nothing must be done to protect or promote trade and growth because market forces will do this automatically. So protectionism holds that regulation of international trade is important to ensure that markets function properly. Advocates of this theory believe that market inefficiencies may hamper the benefits of international trade, and they aim to guide their market accordingly. Protectionism exists in many different forms, but the most common are tariffs, subsidies, and quotas. So, for instance, you need to pay tax when you want to get a product here from, for example, China. These strategies attempt to correct any inefficiency in the international market. As international trade opens up the opportunity for specialization and thus more efficient use of resources, it has the potential to maximize a country's capacity to produce and acquire goods. Opponents of global free trade have argued, however, that international trade still allows for inefficiencies that leave developing nations compromised. What is certain is that the global economy is in a state of continual change, thus, as it develops, so too must its participants.
Yeah, thank you, Sid. Now we're going to talk about the last part, the payment methods. The five most common payment methods are cash in advance, documentary credit or letter of credit, documentary correction, open account and consignment, and trade finance. Cash in advance. The cash in advance method is the safest for exporters because they are securely paid before the goods are shipped and ownership is transferred. Typically, payments are made by wire transfers or like credit cards. Documentary credit or letter of credit. A documentary credit or letter of credit is basically a promise by a bank to pay an exporter if all terms of the contract are executed properly. This is one of the most secure methods of payment for both parties. It is used if the importer has not established credit with the exporter, but the exporter is comfortable with importer's bank. Documentary collection. A documentary collection is when the exporter instructs their bank to forward documents related to the sale to the import's bank with request to present the documents to the buyer as a request for payment, indicating when and on what conditions these documents can be released to the buyer. The importer may obtain possession of goods if the importer has the shipping documents. The documents are only released to the buyer after the payment has been done. Then we're going to open account. An open account is a sale which the goods are shipped and delivered before payment is due usually. This payment is usually done within 30, 60, or 90 days, with 90 days being the max. This is one of the most advantageous options to the importer, but it is a higher risk option for the exporter. Foreign buyers often want exporters to offer open accounts because it is much more common in other countries, and the payment after receipt structure is better for the bottom line. Then the last one is consignment and trade finance. Consignment is similar to an open account in some ways, but like payment is sent to the exporter only after the goods have been sold by the importer and the distributor to the end customer. The exporter retains ownership of the goods until they are sold. So, yeah, exporting on consignment is very risky since the exporter is not guaranteed any payment. Consignment also, however, helps exporters become more competitive because the goods are available for sale faster. Selling on consignment reduces the exporter's cost of storing inventory. As you can see in the picture right here, the things that are more secure for the exporter are the least secure for the importer. So yeah, basically, what is good for the exporter is not as good for the importer. This was our presentation. I hope you learned a lot from it. We can wait to hear your questions.